All right. I think we're live now.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Jen and Matt Talk About the Bible, episode 5. Thanks for joining today. We are doing these really to talk about a little bit about the biblical text that we're going to be looking at on this upcoming Sunday. So it's just our first thoughts and kind of a casual conversation about the Bible. This coming week, Jen is going to be preaching on the parable of the rich fool.
Yeah.
And that's going to be fun.
It'll be great.
Okay.
It'll be great.
So I'm going to read the parable. We're just going to jump in here, right? I'm going to read the parable and then we're going to see where our conversation goes. But what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try and share my screen and see if people can see the text, which would be kind of fun. All right, here we go. So this is Luke 12, 13 to 21. That might be really small on people's screens, but that's okay.
Oh.
I will just read it.
Yeah.
Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbiter over you?" And he said to them, "Take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God." All right, there we go.
Yeah. So, when I was reading this, the first thing that really popped out to me was verse 15. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. It made me wonder, well, then what does one's life consist of?
Oh, yeah, good.
And then I just always get a kick out of any time there's scripture where it's like, and then I said to my soul, "Soul." I just love that. That's all.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, so what does one's life consist of then?
Yeah.
You're gonna ask that question. I will ask it back to you, and then you'll answer it.
All right. Yeah. Well, I think that if we're thinking biblically, I think that the Great Commandment, actually even building off of what you preached on last week and what the lawyer got right when talking with Jesus about what must I do to inherit eternal life, is to love God with all your strength and might, and to love your neighbor as yourself. So I think that that's what one's life should consist of, as opposed to greed and hoarding things, which I thought was interesting given the light that our world is in right now. I specifically was thinking about, actually, there's a call out for personal protective equipment. If anybody has any, to give and donate to basically anywhere. Shelters even need them, but hospitals and things like that, so that the care can be given properly. So I was thinking the other day, I was like, what do I have? Like, I got nothing, because why would I have personal protective equipment? But I do have a box of gloves. So one box. Then I was like, should I hold on to them for when I go shopping and go out? And I was like, maybe I should do that. But then I ended up went shopping and I forgot them anyways. So I think I'll just donate them.
Yeah, I was hearing from Kenora Fellowship Center again that they definitely need masks and gloves because they have a supply, but they're running out. So yeah, homeless shelters and places that are that are trying to continue their services
Yeah.
for the most vulnerable people. For sure need stuff like that. So yeah, like could this like this parable might be a little bit about like again, how do we actually care for one another and not just kind of hold up our things for ourselves. Um, for me, I'm always interested. I think this is like true of lots of the parables and lots of the stories. I'm interested in the context. Maybe this is a new thing for me, but I'm really interested in the context of the parable. Like, why does Jesus tell it, or what is Jesus responding to? A lot of times he's responding to something. And this is like the opening just kind of struck me this morning. It's so similar to the story of the Good Samaritan that Jesus tells, where there's someone who's demanding a family inheritance, right? So at the beginning, someone in the crowd just says, "Teacher,
Well,
tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me."
yeah, in the prodigal son.
Oh, prodigal son. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I said Good Samaritan, prodigal son.
yeah,
You're right.
it's okay. I was
Um,
like,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that just kind of struck me. Like, I'm assuming that the inheritance has already been given. So this is probably a younger brother asking
mm,
like
about his portion.
about his portion that I guess it sounds like his older brother is not actually giving it to him or not allowing him to have his share.
Right, because
And
I was the cultural process is like the firstborn son would inherit everything. Like even like if there's a spouse left behind, like a wife, she gets nothing, and she only
yeah,
has protection if she has sons. So that's why having a kid is important. So thank God for me with two daughters that I don't have to worry about that. Whew. But so then if that son is hoarding up his own wealth, so I don't know, is Jesus making a comment to the older brother who has the inheritance now, or is he making the comment actually to the younger brother who wants his piece of the pie?
yes. Like, is he talking to both of those? Like, maybe he's talking to both of them. Like, it never occurred to me that maybe he's actually indirectly talking to the older brother who is potentially hoarding the inheritance. And
Yeah.
and what's crazy, first of all, I love that Jesus says, "Who set me to be a judge or arbiter over you?" Um, answer God. Like, is Jesus not like if Jesus isn't going to judge, then like who is going to who is going to settle this? Like, but okay, yeah, like in the culture, sure, he's not actually the one who would settle that kind of dispute, but it's just kind of funny. It's like, well, yeah, Jesus actually probably could be the arbiter there. Um, and then he's saying, you know, be on your guard against greed, when actually he's not asking about like he's asking for his share. He's not asking unless he's asking for more. Like I guess maybe an analysis of the Greek, maybe he's asking for like tell my brother to give me like to divide it, like give me half of it, when actually he wouldn't be entitled to half of it. Like,
Right.
so that word divide, we'd have to kind of go and explore that and find out like what is actually going on there. But my sense is that he's really asking a justice or a fairness issue, right? Like he's really basically saying this isn't fair. Can you fix
Right.
this, Jesus? And Jesus is saying stop being greedy to him,
Mm.
or is he saying be on your guard against all kinds of greed, like including the greed of other people, like be on your guard against the greed of your brother?
Yeah, that's man, that definitely puts a different spin on things.
Yeah, that didn't even occur to me till now. I've preached on this
Yeah.
text and never even noticed that.
Perhaps it's part of why is because we're working through this whole series right now of the stories of Jesus. Like that's, and we're starting to see like the intermingling of all of that, which I think is really neat. For sure.
Right, that's really good.
So well, I'm going to explore that some more, and I'm going to look up divide and see what that is about. The other thing I was kind of wondering about, So if we have like greed, I mean, is that the pursuit of humankind? Like we just work really hard and we gain all this wealth, and then the goal is to like retire and have like a lavish retirement. So, you know, saying to our soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years, so relax, eat, drink, and be merry. I mean, like, I would love to relax, eat, drink, and be merry. That sounds wonderful. But at the same time, I kind of feel like I would get bored. Um, I don't know. I enjoy working. I enjoy seeing things come to be, and so I feel like there's a, I don't know, this might be a stretch, but a bit of like a laziness attached to that. If that's what you're doing now is just relaxing and coasting, I think coasting is absolutely not what God is calling us to do. That's for sure.
Right. I wonder too if some of these words might also be for the father of the two brothers, like who has died. Like Jesus is saying, this very night your life will be demanded. Like, what if the landowner in the parable is potentially the dad? So what did he do? You know, he has the land produced abundantly. He stored everything up. He built bigger barns. And then he says, okay, now I can relax, eat, drink, and be merry. Then he dies, and he has two sons. And the question that Jesus has is, all these things you prepared, whose will they be? And the two brothers are then fighting over their inheritance. Like, so the father hasn't invested in the relationships, right? Like he hasn't actually, he's put so much into his land and his work that so that
Oh
he can
yeah.
relax and be merry.
Yeah.
But actually what that's resulted in is two brothers who are just fighting over the money because they are greedy too, just like their dad, instead
Oh
of like
man.
actually being in a relationship with one another. So it's basically saying like, it's not wrong to actually to have resources. Like it's not wrong to actually work, but if you're doing that at the expense of, that's going to just lead to human strife and greed, and you're valuing the money over relationships, then you're way off.
Absolutely. And I mean, like you hear of this happening with families where everything seems pretty okay with families, and then a parent dies, or the second parent dies, and then there's just this uproar over everything, and families are torn apart. And it always just it's heartbreaking to see that happen and hear about it. And it's kind of, there's a guttural response to that where it's like it's sick, that's what's ended up happening. But that's a good point, is paying attention to what are we in and what are we actually leaving behind.
Yeah. And Jesus' summary of that, like at the very end, I would want you to kind of look at, like, I want to know from you on Sunday, please tell me.
Okay.
Like, what does Jesus actually mean when he says, so it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God? So the very last verse, like, what does that actually, like, I can get my head around what storing up treasures for themselves is about, like, because our world is kind of set up that way. And like, I would like to have retirement savings, hopefully. And I like to travel. It's hurting right now to not be able to plan a vacation.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would like to enjoy a glass of wine, and I would, like you said, I'd like to relax, eat, drink, and be merry. Hopefully
Absolutely.
I'm going to do that with my family and build good relationships at the same time. But I can get my head around storing up treasures for myself. But what does that like? What does Jesus mean when he says rich toward God? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, that's I mean, like my initial response that I'm going to have to explore some more and research a bit is um like, if we're not being rich towards God, we're not being rich towards the kingdom, which means we're not being rich towards creation and our brothers and sisters here on earth. That's my initial response to that.
What does rich toward mean, though? Like, that's what I'm struggling with. Like,
Well,
what does that mean?
okay, that's fair. Rich. That's the word we need to
What is,
look
or
up then.
rich toward? Like, I I feel like rich is something that I get. Like it's not something that it's not a posture that I have towards something. It's a thing that, oh, good, and now I have it. Like the storing up. I feel like that's rich if you have a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, like I think of the word generosity comes to mind. I would think that there's something linked to that. I don't know for sure. I'm gonna have to explore this, but it's a different way of phrasing things, that's for sure.
Yeah. I guess we have to look at looking at other translations might help too, maybe. We're reading NRSV, so maybe checking out another translation or two to find out what they say. I'm going to do that really quick right now.
Okay, what are you looking up? I'll look a different one.
I'm going to look up King James.
Ooh, good.
You should go see NIV maybe if you've got it. Wow, there's a lot of translations of the Bible Gateway. Where is KJV? There we are.
You said the NIV?
Sure. Oh, King James is rich toward God. Same thing.
Yeah, I looked up the Message, because often the Message has something quite different, and that also is rich towards God.
Wow.
Let's look at New Living Translation. Why does it keep dropping back? Maybe I'm lying.
ESV is the same. I bet they're all going to say this. It's going to be great. Yeah, American Standard is the same. So this is pretty much what it says. No, not even help from Eugene Peterson. Hey?
Okay, sorry. Eugene Peterson, actually, it does say something different. I just used my phone incorrectly. So he says, so verse 20 and 21, just then God showed up and said, fool, tonight you die, and your barn full of goods, who gets it? That's what happens when you fill your barn with self and not with God.
Mm. Okay, I like that. That's a really good phrasing.
Yeah, that definitely is a lot different than, at least in explaining that. So not rich towards God. So it's the contrast of being greedy. That's all about self.
Right.
Or I would almost argue greedy is all about self. Even when some people say that they're doing it for their families, I would still say that it's all about self. And I think the example you used is great, because he's had this pursuit of greed for his stuff, and thinking, oh yeah, well, I can relax now, but then there's still abundance left for my kids. Well, who cares? You have no relationship with your kids. Your kids have a terrible example of how to live together harmoniously. So the greed has actually corrupted something for your family. I've heard people say that before, when I've thought, man, that's very self-serving attitude, thought that. And they say, well, I'm doing all of this, I'm doing this for my family and for my kids. I think you're missing the point.
Yeah, that's good. I agree. I'm getting like crazy feedback from like I can hear myself now. So that's not great. That's okay. Weird. I'm sure it's fine for people who have made it this far in the video. That's all right. Okay, is there anything else that we kind of think from this text we need to touch on, or whatever, that you're going to reveal all on Sunday? It's going to be,
of course, amazing. Yeah.
Also, anyone who's watching, like we're live streaming our the whole service now, so our music and everything and prayers, and then we're trying to be interactive. Like if you have prayer requests that you want to send in, like during the week as well, send those to Jen, actually, because she's going to compile those. So jen@prairiechurch.ca. And then we're hopefully upping the quality. We had some quality issues on Sunday, so hopefully those will be getting better, improving for this coming week. So yeah, 10 a.m. and it'll be live on this YouTube channel. So yeah.
10 a.m. Central Time, Manitoba time. So if you're joining us elsewhere, because we know we have a lot of friends and family members who are hopping on that are throughout the world, actually, 10 a.m. Central Time. That said, you can always rewatch it later on. If that's, middle of the night for you, then You don't have to stay up. I think maybe we'll also add the prayer request email in the description of this. And if you haven't already signed up for our email, that is where you're going to get the resources you need to follow along with worship. So please, please do that. We'll include a link to the description here as well for you. Follow us on Instagram, Prairie Pres Winnipeg. Great to see you all, and we look forward to connecting again soon.
Yeah, take care, everybody.